So,
Are you doing the end of season 1 of Slasher right now?
right? Yeah. Like we need that sort of like, carry on. They will always remember, and then like see us laughing at season
Yeah.
1, and
See, I was going the other way. I was thinking Enya, who can? I was like,
right. Do a
just
little book of
misery,
days.
just like me, just like that, just
Yeah,
like rage.
only time. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of where I was leaning towards. I like your one though, which is more, and things is just more forlorn.
Yeah, because mine has the da 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 dun
Yeah,
dun dun dun, and we're just
Mine's has a panpipe solo.
Yeah.
So doesn't have the same ring. So
It's not as rocking.
mhm.
But all right, before we get into what can only be described as a wet fart of a finale episode of
What I
Slasher.
also want to say, I think this might be the worst finale. I think this is the worst season. I think this is the worst finale.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but the whole reveal of like, oh, here's Dr. Death. Oh, and it turns out none of this matters, so whatever.
I feel like, and remember when we were all sitting there going, well, at least we'll get like some explanation or a bit of further explanation on Vincent. Nope.
Oh yeah, so much of that
hard
shit just
passed.
got dropped.
Does not. And then it makes you wonder, there was at least 3 episodes in the middle where we were like that. Nothing really happened in this episode. So they stretched it to 8 episodes and then rather give us, and they love a flashback, Bo. They fucking love a flashback.
Yeah.
Just give us flashbacks. Like, that was skipped. And then the reveal, which I had a sneaky suspicion may be coming on Theo. Once again, that would be great to see in a flashback. No.
I mean, yes. Just the nature of his crime would be awesome to see in a flashback. But
yeah, also, is it the worst? Is it the worst crime out of everyone? I think it might be.
Probably, yeah, because I mean he's murdering children, so yeah.
So
probably.
I mean, I'm like, yeah. So like, once its priorities are all over the place, but we will get to it, ladies and gents. And I can assure you right now, as dumb as we're saying it is right now, we are only scratching the surface.
No matter how stupid you think the finale of Slasher is, it's even stupider than you suspect.
It is so bad. It is so bad.
But let's start with what we've been watching, good and bad, and I'm excited to talk about both of mine.
Oh,
but I like that coffee mug, by the way.
Yes,
it's although it has a Funko Pop air to it that I don't like.
Well, yeah, it said this is the Funko Pop molded to the front, so
I got
it's not the most egregious Jason thing I actually own. The most egregious Jason thing I actually own is right here, which is no, it's a Mr. Potato Head Jason.
That's pretty good. I like that actually.
It's maybe the most egregious though of the have we taken marketing for this character too far? Mr. Potato Head says no.
Especially a character that is best known for murdering people having sex.
Just murdering everyone. Let's put him on a kid's toy.
Yeah, right. But I appreciate that. Have I talked to you about how much I hate Funko Pops?
No.
I hate Funko Pops.
Well then, why specifically do you hate Funko Pops?
Because I think they're unattractive hunks of plastic that are just like it's basically, hey, we're gonna paint this other thing on the same mold. It's just the laziest fan product ever.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, I would argue, if like you're arguing from the consumer's point of view, if I'm the manufacturer's point of view, it's the dream product.
Oh, sure, because it costs nothing to make more of them. It's the Pog of our time.
100%. Yeah, it's the easiest thing to market. It's specifically aimed at collectors and fandoms and geeks, basically. And as we found through years of collecting things, that sometimes people are like, "How old are you?"
Yeah.
It's a lot of disposable income there.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, like, I wish I'd come up with the idea for a Funko Pop, Bo, because I could be a billionaire right now.
Sure. Right. From the business point of view, it makes a lot of sense. Like, but it's also like, hey, I wish I'd had the idea to have, children in China make phones for me. because of their tiny little fingers that can manipulate the machinery.
Yep.
I mean, is it moral? Of course not. No. Should we think about that more when we purchase a cell phone? Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, we're not going to solve the world's problems today. Maybe.
Well, not when we've got Slasher to talk about,
right.
Bo.
We've got important
priorities.
Things.
Come on.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You said you were really excited, which gets me like weirdly like erect. So
okay.
Just
all right. I'm into it. Let's start then with my good. I saw Alex Garland's new movie Men.
Right. I'm going to see. It's not out in the UK yet. It's not out until it's either next week or the week after. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, don't tell me how Men ends. It's like, as if I could. I cannot. Men is like Alex Garland saw Ben Wheatley's In the Earth and was like, hold my beer.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me. Like, there's a whole wave right now of like folk horror's back, and I am happy. Like, Ben Wheatley's the guy that kicked it off.
Yeah,
but I am happy right now. That whole wave of stuff that's coming out just makes me incredibly excited. And just from the trailers we saw, so it'd been principally 2 trailers, I think. And we were, me and Baz were talking about this a couple of nights ago when I tell you what my bad is for this week. But when we were talking about originally, because we were going to review it, Baz had basically said that the first trailer he saw, which is the one that had me just like all in already, he was like, that was shite because nothing happened. And it was just like weird arty shots. And I was like, I know, that's all in. And then the second trailer we saw just like a week ago or something. And that's the one that's more kind of catered to, without giving away anything, still is kind of catered towards, all right, here's some plot points. You can obviously see that is the male actors playing all the different roles and all the rest. You can visibly see it from that. But at the end of it, he turned around to me and he was like, that's how you cut a trailer. He was like, yeah, I totally want to see that movie. He was like, the first one, did not want to go and see that at all. I was like, it's an Alex Garland movie, though. Yeah, I think everyone forgets the trailer for Annihilation was the weirdest fucking thing ever.
This is, as a movie goes, this is way more surreal than Annihilation. It's very much here is a cinematic metaphor for a thing I'm thinking of.
Nice.
Which is ultimately, again, this is not spoiling anything. The movie is ultimately sort of about like toxic masculinity and misogyny and things like that. It's called Men, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But what I did not expect from the movie, and I saw this in the theater, better yet, so a couple of fun things about that. One, it was great to experience that in a theater because I don't know that I've seen a movie quite like this in a while. Like, not since In the Earth, in terms of just being like, oh, there are whole sequences that I'm like, I don't know what that means. But it's cool and I'm into it. Like, I'm enjoying thinking about it. Like, I saw it Friday night, and yesterday I was walking around with my lady friend. We went to like this beer and arcade kind of festival thing.
Nice.
Which was fun. But the whole time I was telling her about this movie and trying to describe it to her, and she was like, I have no idea what you're saying. I'm like, I know. I don't know what I'm saying either. But I'm wrestling with it. But anyway, so aside from it being incredibly surreal and allegorical and as artsy and fartsy as you want a movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like it is, when I make comparisons to In the Earth, it may be artsy fartsier than In the Earth.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, right. I know I'm selling you harder on this, but then
let
me
more
also
chips again. I'm about to start passing the baby across the table.
Yeah. Let me sell you even harder on it then. Because at the end of this movie, there is a solid 15-minute sequence that I was like, this is some of the most outrageous, gory shit I've seen in a movie in some time. And I mean, like, to say it's a Cronenbergian level of body horror is underselling it. It is fucking crazy. And I mean, it's almost Society.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Right?
Hello.
And when you see it, you're going to be like, you're right. That is almost Society. It's fucking crazy. And so, and it also has a super artsy fartsy ending.
Good.
And so by the end of the movie, like the lights come up, and this was the other part that was great about seeing it in the theater, is I'm like, that was fucking crazy that this movie, first of all, that was released in theaters, as if a mass market was ever going to respond to a movie like this. But more than that, there was also a component of like listening to other people in the theater.
Oh, it's always the best thing. It's always the best thing.
Of just like, what in the fuck was that? What just happened? But also like this, because the end is so like dramatic and kind of gory and super weird and all that stuff. Like people were like, that was disturbing, but also I don't know what I saw. And again, I could, as I was watching the movie, I was like, this is the most Duncan ass Duncan movie.
Oh yeah,
I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm like from the moment it was announced, as soon as A24 announced they were doing the next Alex Garland movie, I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah,
it's a match made. That to me is a match made in heaven. And like, we just take a sec because obviously we're doing the reason the podcast Understairs hasn't put out the next installment of the A24 series with myself, Bo, and Jamie is purely because A24 this year have a horrendous amount of movies coming out.
Yeah.
Like it's absolute. It's almost one a month. And I would love to say that I was over exaggerating, but I'm not. It's almost one a month. And has been since, I'm trying to remember what the first one was that came out this year, but we've been on a tear with X, and then we got The Northman, Everything Everywhere All at Once. We've got Men. We've still to get there's a slasher movie, kind of satirical slasher movies starring
Bodies.
Yeah, that's still to come out.
I saw the trailer for that and I was like, that looks pretty good.
Once again, in.
Yeah.
So that's still to come out, and I think that's August. I've got in the back of my head that is August. And then before the end of the year is out, you're going to get the new Ari Aster movie, Disappointment Boulevard. So, and that's just the ones I know about. So, I mean, they're like, this is what gets me excited because, like, to me, right, yes, they have a particular style and they have a particular leaning sometimes, not all the time, but they're putting these movies in theaters. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I've said it before, like, the way you're describing that is how I felt sitting in a giant multiplex cinema with maybe 10 other people watching The Lighthouse, going, how did we end up like the beginning of this decade? like in 2010, I couldn't see a movie like The Woman in theaters. You know, how have we ended up like we went from, you know, like horror movies can only be big studio efforts, and within 10 years, I'm watching an art house movie about two guys falling in love through despair and a lighthouse in black and white.
Lamp oil, yeah.
And speaking in authentic dialogue and black and white in a weird aspect ratio. How did I end up here? So that's what makes him amazing. And that's kind of what got me giddy when he said he was like, to me, there should be more directors kind of heading that way. If you know what I mean.
Let me go make my A24 movie in between the other stuff because A24 is gonna let me do the weird shit.
Well, this is you see when they say that you do the one for the studio, one for yourself. That one for yourself should be through A24.
Yeah. So a couple of things from chat. One, Richard is here saying that he's here to get laid. Give it time. It's the DBCC motto. You ought to be fucking.
And it's coming. Nipples are out. Nipples are out.
We'll get dirty.
That's going to become a GIF somewhere. Whenever someone posts something, right?
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Also, Andrew in the chat saying that the Northman is Focus Features, not A24.
A24 are, A24 are involved, even if it's from the distributor's point of view.
Okay.
They may have not financed the full project, but as an A24 movie.
We'll see. Richard
Falls
saying,
well. I obviously can't speak for every territory, but A24 distributed in the UK. So,
and Richard also saying that he's very patient. So I don't think you're going to have to be that patient. Though, like these shows only go at most 2 hours, and somebody's gonna show some skin. All right. What is your good?
It's an A24 movie, and I literally just mentioned it. Is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, go. I'm requesting you go real light on spoilers because I really want to see this and I haven't yet.
Dude, there's literally no way I could spoil this movie.
Okay.
Like honestly, it is the title is maybe the most on the nose title I have ever heard. Everywhere. Everything Everywhere All at Once is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
Essentially, kind of distilled down, follows a woman who is spectacularly bad at everything and is kind of settled. She originally from might be China. She settled down with her husband in America and they own a laundromat. She's got one daughter and her father, who is starting to, reach levels of senility which aren't easy, are all living above a laundrette which they own, and they have to go. That we basically join them as they're having to submit their tax returns to Jamie Lee Curtis, who works in the tax office, and as she's getting ready to do this, her husband starts acting weirdly, and turns out her husband is kind of possessed by another version of her husband from the multiverse. And he's basically there to say that there is an all-consuming power which is destroying every version of the multiverse. Kind of like the One, like Jet Li's The One, kind of destroying them all, and they're working their way here. And he has found out that she is the answer to saving the universe because he focused on all these other iterations of her because they are like gifted in one way or another, and that's what the problem is. This particular version of her is so ungifted at everything. She might be the one that might be able to crack it, and then at that point, that's the story, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole allegory and metaphor behind that, which isn't all that well hidden. You'll be able to decipher it, which I won't go into. But then it is almost every genre of film just crammed into. It's absolutely, it's got some of the best choreography I've ever seen. It has a joke that I really want to tell you that I can't, which is maybe one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen, and how they got away with it with being so close to Disney, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it is loud, it is bright, it's like acid fueled, and it is absolutely the most entertained I've been in a cinema, and I don't know how long. As like I was there with Baz and Dave, who I go with to pretty much everything, but they have a kind of ongoing sort of issue, shall we say, with A24 movies. Like both of them fucking hated The Lighthouse. I could tell very earlier on that both of them hated The Lighthouse, and both of them hated Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I kind of knew about 25 minutes into it, and I also knew the movie was 2.5 hours long. Like, you're gonna have to strap in here, lads, because this is just getting going.
Yeah.
So yeah, and literally my favorite bit of the whole movie, which isn't really a spoiler, is there's a fake ending in it, and it was obviously a fake ending where credits start coming up and all the rest. And I come up, and Baz obviously hadn't twigged, and I could see his body visibly relax, as if to say, "Oh, thank fuck." And then I looked at him and I was like, "That this has still got an hour."
Yeah.
And he was like, "What?" And then it kicked back in, and he was like, "Oh, fuck."
That's awesome.
It's like, strap yourself in. Hour number 2 is coming. Yeah, it's really, 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 really good. It's an see, I've never seen those directors' previous movie, which is Swiss Army Man.
Oh, I haven't seen that either. I didn't realize it was the same guys.
It's
I've
the
heard
same
good
guys.
things.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Heard great things, but never seen it. So yeah, this is about as bonkers a movie as you'll ever see, and I just can't think that you're not going to enjoy it, Bo. And like, there's so many references to things that I know you enjoy that, yeah, is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the stuff I've heard about it has been wholly positive.
Yeah,
so yeah. I don't think anyone who's seen it has come away from it being like, well, I don't really care for I don't care for this level of entertainment. So I'm excited to see it, but I will maybe next Friday. I don't know. Friday nights have been kind of my thing. Like Friday nights recently, I've been going to the movies, and that's how I ended up seeing something like Firestarter, which
I mean, why? Why? This is the problem.
But all right, but it was by the guy who directed The Vigil, and I wanted to see what he was.
Firestarter's a really shitty story, and the original movie is like really the original movie's only worth note because it's got a very young Drew Barrymore in it,
and George C. Scott playing a Native
George
American
C. Scott's
assassin.
kind of fucking amazing. Yeah. But I mean, it's not as like the story's a bit shit.
I am fond of Firestarter. I read Firestarter when I was very young, and I liked it. But all right, speaking of bad things, Duncan, let me tell you all about. This isn't really bad. This is just me kind of grinding an axe.
Oh, grind axe.
So I watched on Shudder the found footage phenomenon documentary.
Right. Yeah, I'm aware of this. I've kind of avoided it because is it wrong for me to say I just don't think that I think there's something wrong about someone creating a documentary about about a genre which is kind of encapsulates the idea of documentary film. Yeah, I just, to me, that feels like we're going up our own arse.
A little bit of Ouroboros.
I just don't understand why we would do that. So
because we make horror documentaries about everything, whether it's like here's the making of fucking Return of the Living Dead or whatever, like all of that stuff, and it's mostly amateur filmmakers, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense, but it's mostly filmmakers that are like, hey, you know what, I would like to do a documentary on this facet of horror, whether it's it's like those In Search of Darkness documentaries that are like, hey, do you remember this movie? What about this movie?
Yeah, well, it's two step. Like Bravo used to do this, and Bravo used to do it better because you got adverts. But it was the same, like the top 50 scariest horror movie.
Yeah,
and it was just a bunch of talking heads talking about scenes that you love from movies, and I'm fine with that. But I like when we're doing it for. No offense, right? I know everyone. When we're doing it for like when we're doing a documentary called Wolfman's Got Nards, and we're doing it on the Monster Squad. Do I need a documentary as to how the Monster Squad was made? I have the Blu-ray, which has a making of featurette in it.
Yeah.
If there's any and then like Cursed Movies, there's another one that pops up, and I'm like, do it there and under like yourself. I understand cynically they're very easy to make. It gets a lot of talking heads, a bit of a payday. People that are involved with it, a bit of a payday, and they tackle movies that are very popular, and everyone thinks they're going to glean a bit of knowledge into something but it's still what was this movie cursed? No, it got fucking released. If it was cursed, the studio wouldn't have released it. Like someone got injured on set. Yes, someone gets injured on every set. Every set.
I watched exactly one episode of that Cursed movie series, and I was like, this is fucking stupid.
But Shudder, I love Shudder, but Shudder are like the primary driving force behind a lot of these. It's like, can we just pick another thing and make a documentary on it? Yeah, why not?
So, all right, right. So the large, I agree with you. You and I are in the same headspace as far as I don't necessarily believe every movie or every subgenre requires a documentary to, flesh out our understanding of it. But
like horror noir, right, made sense to me. Even though my gripes with horror noir is that I personally felt that they picked the most obvious movies of the whole thing. But I see merit in a documentary basically saying, listen, this is how it was for Black actors and directors trying to break into the business. Here's what we've had to get through, struggling to get to this point. But look at where we are now with Jordan Peele, Candyman, things, all these things. Look how far we've come. I understand that.
Sure. No, and I mean, yeah, I fully agree. There is a lot of value in, here is the effect that that a minority population has had on a genre writ large.
100%.
That's a totally different animal than what we're talking about here.
Not of the same caliber as what you're saying.
Right. Like horror noir is it's just inherently a fascinating topic because Black cinema is a fascinating topic because it speaks to and it reveals a life in America that I did not lead, that I am not as familiar with, and hearing, here is how that experience that is underrepresented translates into a genre that I love. I love that shit. That's or that folk horror documentary.
Stop watching. I've got the box
Woodlands
set.
Deep and Dark and Days Bewitched or whatever.
Yeah, I've got the box set up there still in shrink wrap because I know whenever I open that, I'm going to have to spend like a month.
Yeah, it's terrific. It's a terrific documentary.
Yeah,
and again, it's like here's a deep dive on a subgenre of horror. Here are the roots of it. Here are movies that are probably more folk horror than you think because of this reason and this reason, and super well done, super well researched, really fascinating. Contrast that with something like the found footage phenomenon, which is just the run of the mill talking heads. And it's people that I'm interested in hearing talk about this. It's like the guys behind The Last Broadcast and the guys behind Blair Witch and Wame Balaguero from Rec is interviewed. And, it's the guys behind Ghostwatch, stuff like that. And it's like, I would almost prefer you do a deep dive on the phenomenon of Ghostwatch. And get deep into like, here is the relationship with the BBC. The most interesting part of the whole documentary is when they talk about like, we kind of manipulated what is, like these people who were known to be reporters on the BBC, and we were able to use them in a way to kind of increase the veracity of what we were doing.
Well, and they had they had at the time the most popular and reliable talk show host. Michael Parkinson was. Like he was a truck. They used him in a way which I don't think you could do now.
So talking about that stuff was really interesting, but too much of the documentary is the member-berry stuff of like, hey, remember when this movie came out, and like remember how popular Paranormal Activity was, and here's how popular Blair Witch was, and it's also. Like it just feels like such a skim over the surface, like you're throwing the rock across the pond.
This is like to me, like we spoke about this before. Found footage to me, and I know you dedicate a whole a whole lifetime's worth of viewing towards like really delving into that subgenre in particular. But every now and again, I'll come across a movie that's shot in that format that I genuinely think is really, 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 really well done. And I can almost guarantee none of them are featured on that documentary.
I agree. Like the stuff, especially the recent stuff, like Lake Mungo is mentioned, which is good.
They kind of have to now because it still actually irks me now to see like articles that say, the best found footage horror movie you've never seen. And I'm like, we've been saying that for 10 years now, right? Everyone's fucking seen it.
Yeah.
Right? There's a very small percentage of people that haven't seen it because I'm happy they've seen it, but you drummed that up, right? It's not as if it's hard to find now. It's on fucking Shudder. I have the special edition Blu-ray.
Yeah, turns out the secret's out on Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
The cat's out of the bag on that one. But, you know, other movies, like, I would argue, like, Savage Land is a really interesting use of found footage that is ignored. Like, Borderlands, they talk about a little bit, and that's kind of an interesting, lesser-known one. But, I mean, I would enjoy a discussion if they kind of took the Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched angle of like, hey, this is going to be a 3.5-hour documentary, and we're going to go deep on this stuff, as opposed to just do the stuff that if you're into found footage and you're into horror as in a like a historical or kind of a studious kind of way, that you're going to know, oh, by the way, Peeping Tom sort of introduced this idea of first person perspective, and that's how the documentary begins. And then we're going to go into things like the Lost Broadcast and Blair Witch and how the internet helped that phenomenon. And then we're going to talk about how, there was the guy who did the McPherson tapes, and you know, it's just all the stuff that you expect. And there was nothing coming away from it. And like you said, maybe I'm not the audience for this because I have made something of a study of found footage movies.
But then who's the audience? This is the thing that infuriates me. If you're aiming it to, if you're like, this is the found footage phenomenon or whatever it is, and like, let's get into the weeds here. Like, and it's going to be shown on Shudder, once again, a horror channel for horror fans. I just don't. I physically don't understand who the target audience is, unless it's for people that just don't watch movies.
Right, but then why premiere it on Shudder? Like,
this is the thing. Yeah, like, why put it there? Like, I understand if it's doing the festival run, or maybe it's being released somewhere else. Like, let's get into the, like, you might not know this, like regular cinema goer who goes and sees, massive Hollywood movies, but there was a subgenre of cinema that generated multi-millions of dollars in there with your Paranormal Activities and your Blair Witch projects, like spawned franchises, influenced directors. This is found footage, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about its impact, and let's talk about how it's still happening now. Get some really interesting directors in who are cutting their teeth releasing things in an India style. Like, let's do that. That to me is more interesting than let's just talk about movies that everyone knows.
Yeah, the thing that the documentary never touches on that I would be really fascinated to hear about are, like you said, it's the people who are churning these things out. And like James Cullen Bressick is interviewed for one of his movies, but it's in the context of, hey, I made this movie that has kind of controversial ideas in it, and here's why I did it. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine, but I want to hear the people that are like, hey, I made this, dumbass alien abduction movie, and is there a profit in those things? Like, why is Tubi filled with 1 million of these movies? And who is making those? And maybe that's kind of the documentary I really want to see, is not just like, okay, yes, anybody can make one of these, but is that profitable? Does it dilute the impact? Like, who is making the good ones? One of the most interesting things that anybody said, I think it was the guy who did, maybe it was the guy who did Ghost Watch, either that or it might have been the guy who did Afflicted. Which you want to?
Yeah, we covered Afflicted back in the day. It's a great movie.
Yeah, terrific. But they were like, as soon as you cast somebody in your movie that I recognize, you've automatically ruined the illusion of found footage.
That's straight away. Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many movies do that.
And I got one of those press releases that I know you get too. They're like, hey, casting this new found footage movie, and here's Keith David is going to show up in it. I'm like, well, I'm already not interested because I know who the fuck Keith David is.
Yeah. And if part of it is part of not the illusion, but part of the joy of watching like a found footage movie or a full documentary movie is that you really want to be about 10, 15 minutes in and forget it's a movie you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. And the best ones are the ones that tend to have an impact. Like, and there are times where that's where I know you're not a fan of it, but that's where a movie like The Fourth Kind is very sneaky with what it does. Like very sneaky, because it gives you the, oh look, here's actors and actresses that you know, but we're just recreating this over here, which is full of people you don't fucking know. So these are reenactments of their, and we're going to put them side by side so you can see the impact. And that's how they get around that. And it's probably of, you know, of the, we're going to do something with big named actors and actresses as a way to propel things to get people to go and see it. It's probably the smartest approach, is saying it's a reenactment. But at the same time, though, I mean, at no point in that movie was I like, did this really fucking happen?
Like, right, yeah.
I have to Google this right now.
And I agree with you. I think that is maybe the coolest part of The Fourth Kind. I have my problems with that movie, but
I know you did.
It's you know, it's yeah. Anyway, but I respect that it's trying to do something different, and I'll give it
tried a
different
approach to it, at least.
Yeah, but again, I just wish this were less of that. You know, hey, here is the most cursory, you know, second year college paper version of what found footage is, as opposed to the deeper dive stuff that Shudder has done well. You know, like they've done a couple of just absolutely tremendous documentaries, Horror Noir and Woodland's Dark and Days Bewitched being great examples of that. And this is just it's fine if you are new to the idea of found footage, but I just wonder how many people are really in that place at this point, especially horror fans.
Yeah, it's a genre itself that it's a genre itself that gets maligned a lot. And if you go in with that superficial approach, just mentioning the 8 movies that everyone already knows, doesn't make me want to deep dive any further. Probably not.
Yeah, like I wish somebody had, and maybe it's just because I'm real partial to it, but like, where is Capture, Kill, Release in this? Where is, like, you mentioned the Poughkeepsie tapes in passing, but like
that movie was on the banned list. You know what I mean? You go into that. What was it about that one movie that scared distributors? You know, there's whole fascinating, like, I just don't understand that. Like, to me, it just feels like, do they talk, I bet, did they mention Noroi?
Yeah, the guy who did Noroi is in it, and
you want to know why? You want to know why? Because like Shudder, along with all these sites, have been promoting it for a while. So it sounds like if anything, not that I want to throw shade, it just sounds like someone sat down with their Shudder subscription and said, "Oh, there's a found footage subgenre section here. Someone should do a documentary about these movies. Get Shudder to put it out."
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but also it's like when they talk about Cannibal Holocaust, which they and obviously they do, because like, oh, okay, well, this is truly one of the first found footage movies because it's supposedly footage that was found, you know. And but they tell the one story everyone knows about that movie, about Deodato having to go to court to prove that the people were alive. It's like, I know, like,
everyone knows that story. Even if you've never seen the movie, you don't know who Ruggero Deodato is, you know that fucking story.
Right. Just, I don't need this to be the end all be all of this kind of documentary or this look at found footage, but just make it something beyond the most cursory look at this kind of material. And it was just like, watching it was like, yeah, this is a good enough time. This is kind of like if you were having a conversation over beers with a friend of yours where you're like, oh, and remember this movie, and oh, you remember this movie. That's totally what it is. And oh, like, you and I could have had a conversation about found footage movies, and someone listening in on that conversation would have gotten all of the information from this documentary in that conversation. It probably would have taken longer, and it would have been less organized, and there would have been a whole lot more profanity. But the same content would be there.
Let me
so
give you my
yeah,
bad.
please, please.
I finally caught up to, and will be releasing a full episode tomorrow on Podcast Under the Stairs feed on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix
Oh
from
yeah, that's a terrible
2022.
movie.
It's fucking Jesus Christ. Like,
hey Duncan, do you remember Halloween, that new one with Jamie Lee Curtis?
what? It's not even that. That's not even the worst thing it does. That is not even the worst thing it does. There's about 3 or 4 things that genuinely left me just puzzled as to how we ended up here. Right.
Uh-huh.
The first
You
big
may be
thing that
asking
left,
yourself, how did I
yeah,
end up here?
literally what I felt like when I was watching it. And I put it off to the last second to watch. I just had no interest in it at all. And my only kind of plus point for the entire movie is it is under an hour and a half long. And if you strip off credits either side, it's actually about an hour and 15. So the movie fucking flies through it. It's hellaciously stupid. I mean, to the point of like almost nonsensical in terms of how they set things up. But big issues are one, its portrayal of quote unquote woke people, which it's just the laziest, and I know be people out there that'll be saying, well, conservatives have been portrayed in really bad stereotypical stuff throughout horror movies for you, and I agree. And I call them out as well. See, when there's lazy writing, regardless what political side it falls on, I will call it out as bad writing. And this is some bad writing. The fact that are like the survivor of a, and this is giving spoiler stuff coming, guys. The survivor of a high school shooting, who is so anti-gun, kind of becomes a hero in the end of this movie by picking up a gun, is troublesome to say the least. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right. Like, in the wake of, just increasing gun violence in this country, I would call this movie borderline irresponsible.
I could not believe, and this is the line we're taking from this. Yeah. This is what we're doing here. To the fact that the same character that doesn't know how to switch off like auto control in a car is also like, see that fucking end scene. I almost threw something at my telly.
Yeah, it's a combination of
angry.
being like,
because it's a reenactment or a recreation of the end of the original movie. It's a character being driven away while screaming, but it's instead of it being, I don't know, like a truck driver who's passing to help the girl escape, this is like an automatic Uber. It's just so fucking so dumb. Like so egregiously dumb.
Right. And we also did this in Next Generation. We've already had this ending.
Yes. Yeah. We just haven't moved at all. Yeah. Then the Sally character, who became like a Texas Ranger. The Texas Rangers are basically America's equivalent of the Mountie. Like they always get their man. She lives one town along.
Couldn't put it together.
Could not put it together. Like they must just be giving away those, because that's like, you don't just become a Texas Ranger. Train like a motherfucker, right? But she just becomes it. And like, oh my. So then the fact that she showed up, inconsequential, like 0 point that character being in this one. Like you said before, it's like you've seen the Halloween reboot, remake, whatever, repackaging, and being like, that's a cool concept. We could bring that in here. And I'm not against bringing back, like there's a whole sea of horror movies franchises that have done this before. You bring back a survivor from a previous movie as a way to either inform the younger generation on how to survive, or be fodder ultimately, or come back to show the youngins how it's done. But she's like a non-entity. Like totally just like an absolute non-event in this movie. What I love about this is that they said this is a direct sequel to the first movie. A movie that is just cerebrally scarring in the way it's shot. And this movie doesn't have one fucking scare at all.
It's, a lot of people who will defend this movie is...
Who defends this movie? How can you defend it? This is the bit that confused me.
Have you met Jamie Sammons?
Does she like this movie?
I believe that is the case, yes.
But I don't understand. I don't understand how you can call yourself a fan of that first movie and then watch this as a direct sequel to said first movie, because that's how it's packaged. It's a direct sequel to this first movie, and then sit down and say that this does anything well, at all.
Yeah,
he loves the woman like Alice Krieger, who's clearly the best character in this movie, who dies 5 minutes into this movie, as the old woman that was looking after, I don't know, like in an orphanage, a fully grown, like mentally handicapped man, who has a chainsaw buried in the walls. You know what? He'll be great to keep around vulnerable children. It's just so fucking badly written.
As if, Duncan, no other chainsaw existed in the town to tempt him.
Yeah, and like this is a chainsaw from the 70s, and it starts first time, first rev bow. Well, anyway, like this is that by the by on that, she dies, right? And the first thing he does, cut her face off.
Right, becomes her.
But does he become her though?
No,
because she was a compassionate, warm, and caring person, so he wears her skin. But there was other characters there that he could have just skinned it. It's fucking stupid. It's stupid. It's poorly shot. It's horribly acted. The script is dog shit.
Yeah.
And anyone that's like, well, it's really, really gory. That's what I want from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I read somewhere that someone said, well, at least gives you a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. At least it gives you a Chainsaw Massacre, like it's in the name. And I was like, oh. So every horror movie has to, if that's what it's called, has to have that in the movie.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But that is the defense of this movie. The one and only defense that I will listen to is... it's really gory. It's like, yeah, if that's all you want out of a movie, then fine. You know, I get it. There are moments where all I want to do is watch a Japanese splatter movie because it is going to be gory and ridiculous and silly. Yeah. But this doesn't have like that silly spirit. Like if you're gonna like
it doesn't have the silly spirit of the second one. Right. And it doesn't have the cerebral terror of the first one.
Yeah.
So what's its point?
You know,
what's its purpose? What's its purpose as a movie?
And you can also argue something like like the early Peter Jackson stuff, which is uber gory and over the top and that kind of thing. And it's like, well, there is a point to that silliness and that gore. And at no point in this movie, or you know, like you said, the portrayal of sort of wokeism in the film.
That's it, but it's double-sided. It's the portrayal of wokeism in this movie, and it's not just like a dig at the left. Their dig at the right is the guy that owns the garage.
Yeah.
Who just happens to have a massive assault rifle just lying out because he's a Texan.
Yeah.
I've never been to Texas, Bo, but I'm going to say no one has an assault rifle just randomly. I'm not saying that they don't own them, but I'm just saying like we're in Texas, we all kind of like, I'm sure we all fucking do.
It's like you said, it's just a deeply, deeply stupid movie.
Yeah.
And
which forgoes. See, I can almost understand the Halloween argument where most of those Halloween sequels are absolutely awful with no redeeming features. There's quite a few. I'm not the biggest Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan either, but I like that second one quite a bit because it's fun, goofy, and over the top. I think the third one has a lot of merit that people will eventually wake up to, specifically in the like Leatherface, and that's like a really, really, really interested, weird portrayal of that character, like really, really, really like weird. And we've scrubbed that out. We've wiped these things out in favor of this being the direct, well, as I said before, it said when you package it as a direct sequel, right, you have my interest because to me, you're basically saying we've learned the lessons of the other movies and we have something important to say that basically removes those movies from history. Otherwise, you just do what, this is why, like, if anyone wants to ever argue about what the best franchise in horror is, it's always going to be Friday the 13th because Friday the 13th never gave a fuck. That's what made like it was the same movie spun up over and over again, almost continuity be damned.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that works because that's what the fans kind of want. In the case of this one, you, the filmmaker, said, and this is coming from the brainchild of Fede Alvarez, who did the Evil Dead remake,
which is also deeply dumb, but fun,
but completely fun. Yeah. This one doesn't have any of that there, and I know it's a different director that's doing it, but he was involved with the. I don't, and he wrote the script as well, which makes me wonder about his views on the world? Question mark. I don't understand. I don't understand the purpose of the movie. I think that's my big, like, I can almost forgive other, franchises doing something similar, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is arguably, and like, you can put this like head to head, arguably the best horror movie ever made, right? Arguably. Mm-hmm. And I can understand not getting close to it with any sequel because you're trying to get close to the sun and you can't, you're going to get burned, right? But this feels like, if the previous movie, which I've reviewed recently, is like, right, this is how Leatherface becomes Leatherface. Oh, by the way, look how fucked up his family is. Look how look how this scene reminds you of this. Look how this scene reminds you of this. Like, it's all the way through that movie. It focuses too heavy on kind of the foreshadowing element of him becoming that character, right? If that's the biggest issue in that one, the biggest issue in this one is that they've literally not tried to tie it into anything at all, which is why the very end shot of that movie is head-scratchingly dumb. Where he's like, the post-credit thing where he's walking back to his house. I'm like, oh, so he lived within walking distance of the house and she couldn't find him.
So Mike in the chat is saying that he managed to turn his brain off, make popcorn, and not hate his time with this movie. And then immediately below that says, I've lost all credibility. I'm like, that's not wrong.
Listen, it's not my point. It's not my place to judge people that like something. It's my place to judge the filmmakers who made the statements that they did.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, it's not the people that listen. I've had this conversation before many, many, many times. To me, I don't like the idea of a movie existing that's at least one person in the world out with the people that made it doesn't like. That to me is beyond tragic. I think everything has an audience somewhere. I would argue with anyone that said it was a great movie. If you enjoyed it, that's brilliant. Like, Pieces, to me, I go back to Pieces all the time. Pieces, is he fucking like a diagram, an animated diagram of how not to make a movie. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely, like, from a technical point of view, it is terrible. It is one of my favorite movies ever made because I am entertained from start to finish.
Yeah, if
like Juan Piquer Simone sat down in front of me and just said, "Pieces is the greatest slasher movie ever made," then I'm going to have umbrage and I'm going to have things to say about it. But this is how it's like, we're taking things back to basics. Are you?
Yeah.
Did you watch that first movie? That's what I keep coming back to, and it makes me. I know it was like Toby. It's like lightning in a bottle. It's like Jaws. All the mistakes that happened make Texas Chainsaw Massacre a masterpiece. The fact that, like, at one point, Toby Hooper thought he was going to get this as a U rating because you don't see any blood and there isn't any swearing in it. The fact that he thought that adds to the surreal elements of why, like, Disney cartoons from the 50s are fucked up.
Yeah.
Watch them. Like, it's the same idea. It's that idea of, well, if we don't do anything, we don't show how the sausage is made, no one will get offended by it. And in some respects, that leaves the mind to imagine how the sausage is made, and people are getting stuffed into those sausages, and that's pretty disturbing. It's that level, and this movie doesn't even try and do that. Like, Leatherface is not a scary character, like, in this movie at all.
No.
Also, if I'm picking at things, what happened to his hair lip? Doesn't have one.
Right.
Direct sequel.
It's like if you put, like, that new Halloween adaptation in Evil a blender with, like, a Rob Zombie movie.
But I think it's the thing is, I don't.
It's just, yes, it's ill conceived and it's not well thought out. And I think you and I both agree that it's like, it's one of the reasons that between this and the Choose or Die movie that Netflix did recently, where it's just like, you guys don't know how to do horror movies.
Yeah, I'm not watching it.
You need to stop this. And in fact, I'm one of those people that unsubscribed from Netflix recently because I was like, I'm just not watching anything on Netflix that's worth a shit. And
I'm not, because Stranger Things is coming back, and
I've never cared for Stranger Things.
I know you don't like Stranger Things.
So yeah, so it was just like I don't have any reason to continue to pay for Netflix because there is nothing on Netflix. And every now and again,
if you're not watching anything on it, then you should not be paying for it.
Right. Like if eventually there'll be 3 or 4 documentaries I want to watch, and I'll re-up for a month and watch those. But it was one of those, like, I got those emails from Netflix that are like, hey, we really want you back. Remember all of these things? And what about these new things that we're making? And even those, I was like,
who can say where
like as soon as you open it, India music starts playing. But even those, I was like, oh, I don't want to watch any of that. All of that stuff sounds terrible. Like, oh, we've got the new season of, Downton Abbey or whatever. I'm like,
there's a whole lot of like, I don't know at what point everyone wanted to be a British aristocrat, but that's a thing that needs to fucking die.
Especially here in the United States. Look, we got problems of our own here. The one problem we don't have is dealing with a fucking monarchy. What is the nostalgia for having a bunch of rich, old, inbred people that do nothing?
This is like you are going through what your country's going through, a bit of a crisis of identity, and in that crisis of identity, you're trying to look back to, like, you could go back to, remember when people like a simpler time when your economy was doing really good. There's an extreme version of that, which is like, remember that time we were ruled by a monarchy? Remember when we were a colony? It was a simpler time.
Right, when nobody had to make decisions or be responsible for anything, that there was an authoritarian head.
And the thing is that the monarchy has no power in my country at all. In the UK, they literally, they like, the Queen is rolled out to very little. She is technically, the government goes to her to ask permission to form a government, which she's never refused.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah. And oh, in saying that, she's about to have our platinum jubilee, and I'm getting an extra day off work. So I will be pro-monarchy for that day, and then anti-monarchy right after it, like I have always been.
Speaking of being anti-monarchy, that has nothing to do with maybe Canada. It's Canadian.
Oh no, they did the same thing. They were like, let's get the fuck out of here.
They're still somewhat related, but let's talk about the finale. That's what we're here for, and it ain't gonna take us that long because not that much happens in this episode.
This is a surprise. Like, I thought, well, they're saving the best to last here, Bo, because we're going to get a ton of flashback, a ton of backstory, and this show's like, nope.
There are some flashbacks, but they're all right. Well,
there are some flashbacks. This will be fun to talk about because the flashback, the important flashbacks. Like, let's talk about how Dr. Trin, medicine woman, like poison, like the poison viper that is Dr. Death. Let's find out how she got involved with this one. One flashback doesn't make sense, and we never touch it again.
Right. So
what the fuck?
All right, the episode is called Kindred, for the record, just to end this appropriately. You open on...
The episode should have been called Fuck Duncan.
As I said in the upfront, when I was watching this, as the episode went on, I was like, oh man, like, as much as I hate this episode, Duncan is going to be so angry.
Oh man, you've no idea how angry I was. I really do. I try and distance myself from too much of the anger and things I watch, because life is short and I can't control it. But this one, This one pushed all the buttons.
I
this
really
one
like
mashed. It. This one mashed all the elevator buttons on a 25 floor building,
and it just smacked them like all of the like, you know, Duncan is tired, Duncan is frustrated, Duncan is angry. Just bang, bang, bang. I appreciate that. But all right, yeah. So you open on a dude doing art.
Yes,
and kind of like using this big mechanical vice, this pneumatic vice, to destroy some stuff. And Dr. Death rolls in.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh my god, I'm such a fan of your work. Is this one of your new pieces? Oh my god, this is so nice." And he's like, yeah. When I turned 50 years old, I destroyed all my old work. You know why? Because I realized that everything that came before was all garbage and bullshit. And so now I'm gonna start over at 50.
Yeah. You know who this is supposed to be?
Kind of Pollock?
No. This guy. You know who this guy's supposed to be?
Who?
They allude to it later on. This is O'Keefe's dad.
Oh, right. Yeah, they do mention this. Yeah.
Right, but once again, had he said, my partner, she's not a bit like any mention at all to the Galloway family to link this in would have been nice.
Sure. But, that's not the kind of show we're dealing with here, Duncan. By which I mean entertaining or well thought out. So she also is like kind of fingering his vice machine.
Hey, easy now. Easy, tiger.
And he's like, yeah. This machine, it'll crush anything. It's as powerful as 50 million bulls all pulling together at the same time or whatever.
Yep.
And
science can't create a machine like this. Leave it to an artist to do it.
Right. And she's kind of like getting turned on as he's teaching her how to use this.
Yeah, she visibly squirts at the end of this scene.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And so at the like as he's kind of talking, she grabs his head and forces in the vice. He's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" Yeah. And then hits the button and squooshes his head in this vice.
Yeah. Creating a kind of Cronenbergian, which is a Cronenbergian head vagina, which she then fingers, Paul, clearly getting off.
She absolutely comes with two fingers stuck in this guy's brain vagina.
His brain vagina.
And then wah, credits.
Yeah, I was like, cool. A whole episode where we get our backstory, which is just how she learned the art of death. I can't wait. And then this show was like, that's her flashback. That's her story. Because everything we hear beyond this point is, and we don't hear a lot from Dr. Death here, like at all, before she gets shivved, is really, it doesn't add up to, and it did make me wonder at this point, is this the least well thought out killer character in Slasher? And it is.
Well, it's certainly
it's about as two-dimensional.
Yeah. It's
about as two-dimensional as it gets. Even the, because we thought, because once again, it's worthwhile linking back to a lot of the theories me and Bo have kind of put forward in this season particularly. But one of the big things we said was it could either be a case of Spencer knew exactly what he was getting, that's why he hired her, or she's went rogue. like he hired her to do like death for sure, like kill me, I want you to kill whoever fails, but he didn't realize that she was going to go as fucking vicious, like pinning people at a wall and eviscerate, that sort of level, cutting an orphan in half, like she's like, I don't know, it's like a fucking David Copperfield fucking magic trick, like on that level. It's not as, but the thing is, at the end of this, I still didn't know if that was the case or not.
Yeah, but that's not what it's about, man.
Don't be a man.
Yeah, like at the end, we'll talk about what all of this means in that burn after reading fashion of like, come back to me when any of this makes sense. So Dr. Death wakes up tied to a chair with Liv, Vincent, and Theo around her, grilling her about like, why did you do this? Why are you murdering?
Yeah, surprisingly unscared as well.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, you're the 3 survivors. Oh,
well, and she says, well, David Cronenberg wanted a predator on this island let loose with you, test you because he wants his heir to be real cutthroat. Yeah. And he basically told me I could do whatever I wanted as long as I left one person still standing. So, if you're a crazy psychopath like myself, it's kind of a sweetheart deal.
Yeah.
I just have to leave one of you alive, and even I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And Liv gets all high and mighty about like, why did you kill my mother? My mother was nice and never did anything to anybody.
Remember this statement, by the way. I want you to remember that. Remember what Bo just said there.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to come back to it.
And so, meanwhile, Dr. Death starts weaseling out of the robes.
Oh, yeah.
Because, she's a trained killer.
She does the, was it Dexter season 3 thing where she's like that, if a wolf has its paw trapped in a in a snare, it'll gnaw off to survive. She starts fucking she's like, I will get out of this chair. When I get out of this chair, you're all fucking dead.
I thought of it as that, like the kid from Salem's Lot who learned the trick of tensing his muscles and relaxing and slowly working his way out. But anyway,
like OJ, when OJ stopped taking his arthritis medicine so he couldn't get his hand in the glove. It's the same thing.
So she escapes and just starts kicking everybody's ass.
Oh, aye. She like goes to town. And I was like, that, right? Flashback explaining the skills. Nope. No.
So she's choking the shit out of Liv, who seems to be the biggest threat. And then Vincent just brains her with a stool.
Yes.
And so cut to her tied up again, only this time they've gone real over the top with it. Yeah, they're just like,
which, to be honest, I would do the same as well. Like if she got out that quick last time, like I would have her like cemented up to her neck. So it's just a hell. Like,
yeah, you give her the Liv's mom treatment of burying her hand up to her neck.
Yeah,
I can hold my breath a long time. And so they've got her all tied up, and they're like, okay, like we were saying, why did you do all this? And she says, look. Here's the thing. I was an actual honest-to-goodness doctor, but there was a whole malpractice thing that may or may not have been true.
And I'm like, flashback? No. Let's just keep talking about things that sound really interesting and better than what we're watching and not show us them.
It's the old narrative trick of tell, don't show, Duncan.
Yes. Yes, which every audience member loves.
Yeah. And so she's like, well, basically, Cronenberg blackmailed me into getting rid of anybody that was a pest, like this artist that you saw the flashback with. And they're like, flashback, yes. And
but this is when I think at that point, that's when Theo goes, that was O'Keefe's dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, all right.
And so they
is that important? Nah. Did we need to know that?
No. So we get around.
So why was he a threat? Give me I don't want to just keep picking the shit out of this episode. I'm gonna, but why is that important? Why did that loose thread need tied up? Were you at any point going I wonder who O'Keefe's dad is?
Well, of course not. And the better information would have been literally anything about what happened to Vincent.
The better information would have been how O'Keefe managed to get to the age that she's at and not know how to whisk an egg.
Well, yeah, I've got some questions.
That would have been important. Yeah, but no, you're right. Anything at all to do with Vincent is more important than every second that we're going through right now.
So we get the explanation of the wood chipper thing. Though we saw you die, and she's like, no. What you saw was me with a sack of guts that I took from that boat guy.
Which I called, ladies and gents, because we never saw his body and we didn't see her fall in. And I said at the time, it's the boat guy. And if I've worked that out, Bo, everyone else should have worked that out. So we don't need a flashback explaining how she didn't die. I know she didn't die. I don't need that flat. This has got Sawitis.
So the problem is that these characters have not seen the previous seasons of Slasher. So they suspect how stupid that this might be. But yeah, so she basically, hid inside the wood chipper, but above the spinning blades.
Yeah.
And then threw, the guts and the necklace or the ring or whatever into the wood chipper too, so they would think it was her. And she says like, oh, by the way, this wasn't the first time that we used that wood chipper. And you're like, oh, flashback?
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
No.
Like, yeah, she'll be using that wood chipper to murder other people. That'd be cool. But none of that happens. And instead, Liv is like, oh, okay, well, how about we just kill her? We take off and nuke the place from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah.
And Vincent is like, totally, we should.
Yeah, like Vincent was going to suggest that. He was about to open his mouth, right. And then
it's so crazy that you say that. I was just gonna say.
Wait 1 second. You're Gemini. I'm a Gemini. Twinsies.
And Theo was like, no. We ought to turn her in, because if this episode proves nothing, it's how much I trust the legal system.
Yes. I am a big proponent of the legal system
and how justice is served.
Yes,
with the legal system. So
yeah, justice will out, ladies and gents. That will out. And then like Dr. Trin is like, well, you might not want to kill me because I just so happen to have a little bit of dirt on each one of you. And I'm like, this is Clue.
Mm-hmm.
This has become Clue. Became Clue earlier on with the Clue-like secret passages.
Or if you're in Europe, Cluedo.
But no, this has become Clue. Like, this is the secret dossier with all the blackmail material and everyone that will be given away if the person doesn't. Like, this is Clue. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I've got like, and I'd like, for example, I know about what happened with, Vincent and his. Blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what it was. And then she's like, or maybe
it was somebody he had killed or was accused of killing or something.
But he managed to get off scot-free. Liv's involved in some military thing? Question mark.
It was a cover-up in Iraq, is how they describe it.
Yeah,
but again, we don't really know what.
And then she's like, and then Theo kind of cuts her off, and she's like, your one's particularly juicy. And I was like, that I fucking knew. Once again, go back 4 episodes when I was like that. This guy's been a bit too nice, a bit too squeaky clean, and he's from the same. There's a reason he's not been on that island in 5 years, and it doesn't smell nice. You will get the reveal later on, to which like my jaw visibly fucking dropped when he said it, especially when he says it as well in this kind of post-coital loving moment. You ever driven your car into a nursery full of children? Well, you haven't. All right. Oh, shit.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Anyway, we'll get to that scene because it's so fucking stupid. But anyway, so Vincent is like, shut the fuck up, and then just starts stabbing her, like really shanking her.
Yeah, like if anyone remembers the previous season, the dude's dick that got stabbed to ribbons, kind of that level of shiving. And she's dead. And now that Theo particularly is the one that looks most kind of anxious about this, mostly because we still don't know what his secret is yet, and now he's concerned that secret is going to get out. Which, once again, right, it's a horrible thing that he did, but legally, double jeopardy means
right.
He can't get done for it again.
Like, is he afraid of being tried in the court of public opinion? Like, you already suck. You're like one of the.
You're a fucking Galloway.
Right. You're like a Kardashian.
Yeah, what would the news story be? Like, heir to like megalomaniacal sort of fucking serial killer, fucking Galloway turns out to be a bit of a shithead who has white male privilege.
Right, if Matthew Broderick can still get work on Broadway, Theo is gonna be fine.
If Vince Neil can still be on stage with Motley Crue,
if Great White can still play out. But yeah, so Theo is like, what, I can't believe you killed her. And Vincent is like, look, whatever dirt she had on us was gonna get out there anyway because she's a psychopath. Like, she's lying to us.
Yeah.
And then to interrupt this conversation, there's a ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, it turns out there is yet another game that we have no reason to play at this point.
Of course not. There's 3 of us left.
Yeah.
She was the executor and she was the executor of the estate. And she's now dead.
Right. There's no one to enforce these stupid rules.
Yeah.
And
we're a few hours away from getting picked up. What are we doing here?
Right. Like, again, it's why not just let the boat show up and be like, look, here's what our crazy grandfather decided that we were going to do. We all end up we almost got murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're just going to, probate this estate.
Yeah.
Based on, clearly he was not of sound mind when he wrote
100%.
this will. And so
100%.
we just let the law shake out. Yeah, it's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah.
But when that all shakes out, we're all going to get equal shares of this money.
Yeah.
Because we can all prove parentage.
Yeah.
And that we are direct descendants. Bada bing, bada boom. We're going to get a chunk of this money. Done and done.
Yep.
And instead, they followed the sound of this bell, which is just like this little Bluetooth speaker or something.
This is how far the production values went on David Cronenberg's. Like, if anything, it should be ramping up. But like at this point, it started off with a full dinner table chat of, "I'm dying," and this is what I want to do. And then it moved to a TV that was smashed, and then it became a laptop. And like at one point, it was just a cupboard full of paint guns, and now it's a small black box. We've regressed to the mid '80s, and it's just a pager. It's a beeper in a drawer. It's literally.
Oh, I hate that sound. It's like, right, this sucks. So anyway. After all this, after they follow this out to this freezer, they find David Cronenberg. There are 3 knives laying on top of this Bluetooth speaker, and they find a note that reads, and I quote, "My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white." And they're like, "What does this mean?" And Vincent, who again will never learn any of this backstory of why he knows this stuff, but he's like, "Oh, that's from Macbeth." And it's a whole speech about why you should not be a coward in the face of a difficult decision.
Flashback to when he was performing Macbeth on Broadway or something, like anything.
Or locked in a room by his evil step-parents and forced to read just Shakespeare.
A book. Like locked in a library in the west wing of his new parents' house. Like anything at all that explains how he just knows that.
So it's
this is
the most like underbaked character, like as underbaked as Dr. Trent and the Killer is. Vincent is the character that's like, what was the point of any of the kidnapping stuff if we're never going to learn anything about what happened to him?
Unless it's to set up the most elaborate way to create a red herring that we called at the end of the first episode was clearly not right.
Right, because if you've ever watched, I don't know, any mystery ever, it's never the person that the show is telling you immediately, like, oh, it's probably this guy. And it's like, well, of course it's not that guy.
It's 100% not that person.
Right.
But so this is, I think that, to me, that's its only justification. And maybe to show how much of a shithead Spencer was, but by this point, I was pretty comfortable with the level of shithead this guy was.
Yeah.
Like actually, in the grand scheme of everything else we've seen, him making sure that his grandson was kidnapped and brought up, I don't know, somewhere else, is the least egregious thing. You know what I mean? Like, and the laundry list of other fucked up, horrible stuff he's done.
He had the father of one of his grandchildren murdered. Just to test whether or not the murderer would murder a bunch of other people for him.
He bought a compass set for Liv when she was like, because she sucked at math.
It's
whilst not acknowledging her as his granddaughter.
I don't know if I said this at the time, but it is the equivalent of Frank Cross's dad buying him or bringing home a package of veal for Christmas and Scrooge.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just touch. It's an expensive cut of meat.
Yeah.
So anyway, Liv unbuttons David Cronenberg's shirt to get to his heart, and of course it's been burned out.
Melted out.
Yeah. Which we saw, way back in episode 1 of this nightmare.
Yeah, but this is amazing though, because where the evidence of what they're supposed to be doing is eventually found is up near the heart, which is not where these guys go digging.
No. So, and all right, to that point, their idea is like, oh, there must be something hidden in this body. So let's take it into the kitchen where we carve up all the other bodies in this house, and we're just going to go after it.
Yeah.
And as they're, and so that's what they decide. And Theo is like, we shouldn't be, like, again, kind of the voice of reason of like, we shouldn't be doing any of this.
Yeah.
And Liv is like, well, how about you tell me what your big secret is? And he's like, he's like, if we start carving into this body, people are gonna think that we killed everybody here now that Vincent killed Dr. Death.
And I'm gonna go on, forensically speaking, he's not fucking wrong.
Right. Like they look like ghouls for carving up this corpse, and so he takes off.
Like it's difficult in the court to say, well, the reason we did it is because this card had Shakespeare on it. Like, this is why we can't.
Speaker rang a bell. He had an old beeper that went off, and there was a quote from Macbeth and some knives. So
and this is why we carved up. This is why we carved up the body of our dead granddad.
Yeah, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Objection.
Right.
What did here?
Overruled on account of this sounds awesome. But anyway, Theo takes off. He's like, I don't want any part of this.
Yep.
And so then they just start hunting for whatever. They don't know what they're looking for, just something.
Yeah. And Vincent at first starts off pretty tough and then becomes pretty fucking squeamish, mostly because he's having to rip round dead body parts.
I also like that Liv is like, hey, Vincent, while we're here carving this body up, how about we both say fuck Theo and whoever finds it, because we've got our hands in this. We'll just split the money.
100. And this explains the turn question mark at the end. But once again, this is our final girl.
Yeah.
The final girl, the one that we were supposed to sympathize with, because that's what a final girl is there for. And like, she's just a piece of shit.
Yeah. And so, like you were saying, though, Vincent just gets disgusted by all this and goes off to puke.
But yeah, like, I think the exact bit that he about faces to vom and leaves the room is when she lifts up his colon and then squeezes the shit out of it. And I actually mean squeezy shit out his colon, like someone trying to squeeze toothpaste from a toothpaste tube. So it's a real Colgate moment, Bo.
Chris. Talk about some cavity creeps, Duncan.
As lumps of old man shit starts being piped out of this
dead old man shit. Like, this is...
Oh, he's been dead for a few days.
Also, Duncan, here's some bullshit. They found this thing in a freeze.
Yeah.
That poop would be frozen solid.
Oh god, yeah, it wouldn't even be like Mr. Whippy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It'd be full on rock hard. You know what I mean? It's not a frozen yogurt machine, Bo. You know what I mean? This is it's not, it's unbelievable. It would not be like this. And then on top of all that, what do we know for a fact? Cronenberg didn't eat anything. He never got a chance when he sat at the dinner table. That's an empty colon.
Yeah, we know that he didn't eat but 3 bites of anything for about 30 years, because he would leave every dinner.
He'd be outraged at every dinner. I will have my gazpacho served with a side of outrage.
So, and speaking of poop, Theo is there to give Vincent a little more shit about.
Well, yeah, because the brothers finally fuck. No, I mean they fight. They finally fight. Dude, this is stupid.
It starts off with like Vincent talking about how tough he had it, and you're like, flashback?
Yep. I was like, huh? It's like that. It's like it's like if you've ever seen the start of The Labyrinth.
Uh-huh.
And like what's her tits is talking about I can't not remember the name of that actress.
Jennifer Connelly,
and I should, because
what's her tits.
Yeah, she's over absolutely everything at the moment because she's going to be in that Top Gun movie.
Yeah.
But like she's like doing the goblin, like the goblin rhyme and all the rest, and then you cut to all the Jim Henson things going, that's me when he's like that, you know, like I was always mistreated when I was kidnapped, and I'm like, flashback.
I was thinking of the Bruce Campbell hold.
But we don't get
hold.
We get none of this. Yeah, we get fucking none of this. Instead, we're just not even going to get an anecdotal story. It's just a blanket statement of, you know, I was kidnapped. And I'm like, yeah, we know this.
Yeah, and Vincent is like, look, you know, I always talk tough, but Theo is the one who did all the dirty shit. And then, you know, you were always the perfect kid. And fuck you, no fuck you. And, you know, I was always compared to you. No, I was always compared to you. And then Vincent pulls the I was kidnapped trump card. Like, hey.
Yeah, that's difficult to argue against. I mean, it's really, yeah.
If anyone had it rough in this family, it was me on the count of being kidnapped and taken away. And you're like, and then nothing. So he just pulls a knife and he's like, all right, I'm going to cut you like that Christmas turkey that I've always wanted to do.
Well, this is how quickly this escalates. So it's not even just like a fist fight. This is I am going to kill you, brother, that I've only been reacquainted with, twin brother that I've only been reacquainted with for 3 days now.
Yeah. And so it's running through the halls, and then Theo ducks into like one of the secret passages.
Yeah.
And Theo, or I'm sorry, Vincent is struggling to find him, and then Theo, like a dumbass, just kind of relaxes and leans his head back against the wall, which makes a thump that Vincent hears, and he's like, ha, and starts stabbing through the wall.
Yeah, gets his arm and then gets in there and then chases after him, and then they have a struggle outside one of the entrances, and now we get a flashback, and I was like, what happened to Vincent? And it's a flashback with old man Cronenberg, with basically him having an argument with their mother about the behavior of Vincent and Theo, and he's basically, these kids are I think it's specifically supposed to be Vincent, but he's like, he misbehaves, you know, he doesn't show respect, you need to like show order, you need to do something with this kid. And she's like, but he's just a kid, Dad, you know, like, oh listen. And then like the thump into the door, and the door opens, and then Cronenberg grabs Vincent out, and Theo's like, he did it. He attacked me, and Cronenberg's like, see, this is what I'm talking about. Slaps the shit out of this kid, to which, you know, like,
town on Vincent. Yeah, it was like, look at this piece of shit kid. Look at that good one over there. I like that one, but this kid sucks.
Slaps him again, right? Yeah. Another big old fucking slap right over his face. His mum's beside herself because clearly she favors him more than Theo. And then it switches to the present time, and that's Vincent just remembered that memory. He's like, you always manipulate things to make it look like I was a bad one. And I'm like, do we have any more evidence? Like, because every other clip we've seen up to this point, you were the one that wanted to burn and live.
Right. You are a monster, and you're suddenly trying to recontextualize this in a way that he was a monster because everyone thought he was a monster or something.
Yeah. Bullshit. It's bad writing. It's bad writing, Bo.
And
Theo manages to escape from this.
Yeah. And so they're now back in the main house. And it turns out that apparently somebody was doing some Hitman Agent 47 cosplay. because there's a handy garrote just laying around. And as they're struggling, Theo gets hold of this garrote and just starts hereditarying.
It's 100% from Hereditary, and they've ripped this off.
Yeah. And speaking of things being ripped off.
Yeah, well, FYI, this is not how you would generally use a garrote. I could understand if his neck was, I don't know, like maybe a meter away from the guy's mouth, but it's right beside it. So, like, all you do is go, huh.
Yeah.
And then you don't even need to do the sawing motion. All you actually, with a garrote, you don't actually even need to do a sawing motion. If you use enough strength like that at this part of your face, it will cut right through with ease. And also, a garrote doesn't cut through bone as quick as it cuts through, apparently, here.
Yeah. But yeah, he saw us through, like, from jaw up.
Yeah.
From mouth
up. It's a great
up.
effect. Once again, fair play slasher, like the practical effects and the deaths, chef's kiss.
So yeah, saws the top of his head off, and Liv sees all of this happen.
Yeah.
And she's like, the fuck? But is like, all right, I guess you had to kill him? And he's like, yeah, totally. I had to kill him. I'm like, you saw him. He was gross. You saw him. He had a gun.
He's got a gun!
Yeah. Pick it up. So Liv is like, all right, I'm going to help you clean this up. And we're going to put the garrote in.
Yeah, this is like literally, once again, this is Clue. We're going to stack up the bodies in the toilet neatly.
Yeah.
All finish our drinks, leave in our cars, and pretend that this night never happened.
Yeah. And so Theo is like, hey, I can't believe it came to this. I always thought we were going to have a moment where we kind of reconciled and I could fix this relationship. And he kind of has a breakdown on account of having murdered both his mother and brother in the same weekend.
Yeah.
And Liv has a terrible line here about how no one fought harder against the darkness of this family than you did.
We're going to find out that's a false statement.
Yeah. And so she basically guides him into the shower.
Yeah.
And says, okay, now that they're gone, we're free of everything. It's just you and me. And by the way, let's get naked in the shower and
let's fuck.
Yeah. So they get in the shower. They start making out in there. Yeah. And then they just go fuck.
Yeah.
And by the way, I like that Liv put on a bra after the shower so that they could fuck. I'm like, all right, whatever you say. Look, I'm not saying that actress should have gotten naked for this show. Yeah. But just in terms of the practicality of it, I don't know a single woman that's like, oh, we're about to fuck. Let me put something on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's stupid. Just don't shoot it like that.
Yeah. So after all of the fucking, like, Theo's staring out the window and she's like, hey, don't disappear on me there, big guy. The sun's going down. And she's like, look, the boat's going to be here in about an hour. We're almost through this. And she kind of muses over the fact. She's like, I can't believe we finally fucked. Like, we've been dancing around this forever. It was a real Sam and Diane, will they, won't they? And finally we did it. And our families would have hated this, on account of it being incest and all.
Yeah. Kind of it being morally wrong.
Yeah, morally and also our children
genetically taboo. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, we're technically brother and sister. So, I know it's only
they can't even use the kissing cousins line. You know what I mean? This is close.
Yeah, no, this is not. This is
this is web feet close. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is well, I guess they are cousins, right? Because it's
no, they are cousins. Yeah, they are cousins
because it's Robin's daughter.
It's Robin, yeah.
And so technically,
so they are cousins, but they are full cousins.
They are first cousins. They are.
Oh man,
they are brother. His brother and sister were their parents, so they are close cousins.
Which I like. This is the bit that confuses them. Like, to me, if I was Spencer, this is what I'd want.
I mean,
this is the purebred Galloway. You know what I mean? Like, surely that's like, it's like murder them all. Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Mike points out he refers to it as wrong turn close. And yes, you're right. This is the wrong turn, the origin story before they go to the woods.
But you know what I mean? It's like Spencer would go to the extent of having them all wipe themselves out before he would have any of the two of them sleep together.
Yeah.
Which kind of feels like, I don't know. I'm just saying that the scales appear to be a little bit lopsided.
All right, so they decide, like, okay, well, we've still got to figure out what's in that body, and Liv is like, I'll go do that. You hang tight here. I know this isn't your thing. I'll go find whatever's there, and I'll come back here. Yeah. And he's like,
no. Listen, it's okay, baby. I've got it sorted. It's time for me to get my hands dirty. And anyway, I'm going to inherit the money because, I'm an actual Galloway, and you, well, you're the product of what happened when my uncle forced himself on your mother. So, doesn't kind of really mean that you.
But, let me sweeten the pot for you, though. We'll get married.
I love this bit. He's like that. He's like, listen, we'll get married, and then when we're married, I mean, what's mine's is yours anyway. So that's you. You'll be a proper Galloway at that point. You know what I mean? Because it'll all be legal.
Yeah. And she's like, whoa. Who said anything about getting married? Like, we have fucked exactly one time.
One time. And I didn't even tell you if I enjoyed it yet.
Right. And I don't really want to be married.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, then how's this going to work if we're not married?
Yeah.
Because if we're not married, how are you going to have any of this money? I'm not going to just give it to you.
Yeah.
And Liv kind of pulls him back into the bed, and this is
the bit. This is fucking hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious. Like, just after they've had this argument, this clearly tense argument about money, this is where Theo decides to say, kind of feel like I should just be, I don't know, just honest and open with you right now.
Since we're going to be husband and wife.
Since we're going to be husband and wife, even though you said you don't want to marry me. And by the way, what was that story about what happened in Iraq? Are we going to cover that? Are we going to cover that? We're not. We're just going to leave that floating there. Let me tell you my dirty little secret. A couple of years ago, real fucked up. Drove my vehicle into is it like a nursery or a
daycare center? Yeah,
daycare center. Yeah, like, just wiped out a ton of kids, like 10-pin bowling. Just went right through them. You ever seen the movie Kingpin? It's kind of like that. Just right through them all. And
his rationalization is, I'd had a couple of drinks.
Yep.
It was a poor part of town.
Yeah.
And so David Cronenberg paid off all these families not to sue because, at the end of the day, they were poor.
Yeah.
And he gave them a bunch of money.
Yeah. Now they were poor, and he's giving them a lot of money, and they don't have kids to spend that money, which now means that money is theirs. So
it was kind of a win-win.
Yep. They got rid of those pesky kids and got money.
But, I mean, this is shockingly close to the way he frames this.
This is as cold as he, like, once again, big old heel turn for this character. Although, is it, because I've been seeing for a while that this guy's got a dirty secret. I did not, and I told you my jaw dropped because I had just thought, I don't know, like, I thought maybe like sexual assault on a campus ground or something, something that would be of a level where you'd be like, oh, you're clearly a fucking scumbag.
Yeah.
But you're not the worst person on the island. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you are the worst person on the island.
Dude, not only does he basically reveal that he drunkenly ran over a bunch of children.
Yeah.
Who were, and the parents were then paid off to hide his crime.
Yep.
But he also wraps all this up by telling Liv, like, you know what I kind of like about you? I like that you're poor.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, I see what I've got to do now.
Yep.
And
it's basically the end of From Mice and Men.
I like to think of it as the old-fashioned cuckoo's nest.
Yeah. Yeah, she wraps she has her arms kind of round him, hugging him anyway, and she puts this into a neck breaker. And
he asks her, right, like as he's laying in her arms, he's like, hey,
asks if he can tend the rabbits, doesn't he?
Yeah. George, tell me about the rabbits. That's the Malkovich of Vice and Men. What are you doing, George? Go back and watch that movie. It is shocking how like just tone deaf that movie is. But anyway,
it was a different time.
It was
Forrest Gump made it okay for everyone, right?
Man, but the Lon Chaney Jr. of Mice and Men is somehow more like sensitive to that character.
But
anyway. But like Malkovich, I love Malkovich. Don't get me wrong.
Malkovich was swinging for an Oscar. Lon Chaney wasn't.
Yeah, he should have done like the full Malkovich. I want you to tell me about the rabbits.
Yeah,
like I see you standing over another dead rabbit.
That's literally what I was gonna do. I see you, Frank. I see you standing over the grave of another dead president.
George. Tell me about the rabbits at night when the demons come. So...
what the one Malkovich is filming that scene, it goes through that thing where they're doing all the different photo fits of him changing everything.
Yeah.
He's just like, every time the camera's on him, he's got a beard, a puffy nose.
Oh, he's so good. Anyway, so...
we're right at the end here. We're prolonging the end. We're right at the fucking end here.
In the line of Mice and Men.
Yes.
Anyway, so, but Liv, as she's holding him, this is where Theo is like, so what happened now that we're just coming clean on everything? So what happened in Iraq again? What did you do? And she's like, probably best if I show you. And it again just starts
murders him.
Yeah, breaks his neck, snaps his neck.
Which makes right. So does that make us once again with context? This would be pretty good. So did she murder a civilian? Did she murder a town of civilians? Did she murder a colleague? I don't know. It's left blank, and did Cronenberg help out here? Because Cronenberg has not helped her out at all.
Well, and Dr. Death says that it was some kind of cover up in Iraq.
Yeah. So, but you know what I mean? Like, Cronenberg hasn't openly acknowledged that she is his granddaughter. He would never do that. She only found out that she was his granddaughter when she arrived on the island. You would imagine that if her mum had went to Cronenberg and said, listen, my daughter is fucked up in Iraq and there's a big case and all the rest, you know, we need to, please, I beseech you, cover up. You think she would have told her daughter not to rock the boat when listen, you don't know what, like, they're a horrible family, but your granddad sorted out that horrible thing that happened in Iraq. None of this has come up. It's all like whiplash, left field nonsense. And then it's, you know, it's might as well just start playing the music for Pretty Woman at the end because she gets survived and all of a sudden becomes a millionaire. It's just like, honestly, like, so we then see her disposing of some evidence. So she uses the wood chipper, which is
wraps him up in a bed sheet and just tosses him in the chipper.
So he's in the chipper. Reminds me of that episode of Friends when they're like that. She's like, what happens to all these Phoebe, this is who loves everything, she's like, what happens to all these Christmas trees that don't get sold? And they go, oh well, they go in the shipper. And she's like, why does that not sound as friendly as it's no? Why is that not as friendly as it sounds? And then she turns around and she sees them going in because it's chipper. So he gets in the chipper. We then see her clean up all like essentially stage everything. But while she's doing it, she goes back to Cronenberg's body, and then it's almost as if she remembers, wait 1 second, something about the heart. Let me try and work him like a puppet. So she puts his hand up in his throat, and in his throat there's a bit of paper that basically is like, I don't think this is legally binding. I don't know if throat paper constitutes a legally binding will, but she opens it and it basically says to the sole survivor, you know,
whoever bears this note, the bearer of this deed, gets all of my business holdings and money and house and all this stuff. Basically, Liv now has everything, and
she is our final girl, and she's inherited everything. And she then goes out in the dock as the boat comes along. So it's a real kind of fucking Platoon moment. She and then she falls over. As the boat arrives, and then we flash forward bow,
not
back, and she has she's pregnant
with a wrong turn baby, right?
With a wrong turn baby, and she has. At first, I thought, "Is this her new boyfriend?" But then it turns out he might just be an interior decorator.
Yeah, he's just an interior decorator, and they're in the Galloway mansion.
Yes,
and
he's doing that scene from Beetlejuice, where he's like that. Few clients can read my mind. Viridian.
Yeah, he's the Otho of this of this house. But the worst part of it is when
this isn't the worst part. The worst part is the final shot.
You're right. But
we are going to get to it.
But in a supremely stupid moment in this show, filled with supremely stupid moments,
she gives the game away.
Yeah, when Liv is like, hey, I want you to remove all this flooring, and he's like, oh, why do you?
Yeah, he's like, we tried to get rid of these stains, but we couldn't get. And she's like, yeah, it was blood. That's where Theo killed Vincent. And he was like, I thought you're. And he's like, I mean, like, she like instantly goes back.
It's totally that Martin Short character from Saturday Night Live of, why do you think that Theo killed Vincent? That's so crazy that you would say that.
But also at the same time, Theo's not alive. Vincent's not alive. Yeah. This is an interior decorator. He doesn't know the story.
Right. What the fuck does it matter? Right. I mean, Dr. Death did it or whatever. And
then she goes around to the head of the table, and then she's like, hey, says something about, she's like, I want this place to be, a lovely place for my daughter to be brought up. And he's like, oh, you're having a girl, congratulations. And she's like, yeah, to think that, he could have, that this boy could have grown up to be like a Theo or a Spencer or a fucking Vincent. She's like, lucky my little girl. And then she sits at the top of the table and then starts going, the blood on the walls. They scream to me. She does the most like fucked up dark monologue, right? Just about like the brutality of life and how she has to claw her way to where she's ended up and all the rest. And while she's doing it, we get her looking at a vision of the Galloways. Who's not in this image?
Is Theo not? I wasn't paying attention.
Theo's in this image.
Who's not in there? I didn't stop. I was just so glad it was over. I didn't pay attention.
Her mother's not in it.
Oh. Because her mother was not a Galloway.
But the orphan's in it.
Oh, that's right. Afra was in it. But technically she's a Galloway.
Is she?
Well, no, you're right. She's just an orphan.
Everyone is in this shot except her mother. The character that, Bo, what did I say to remember from the beginning of this episode? That she was horribly upset that Dr. Death had killed her. The character that she was upset when fucking stupid Theo started talking about how his uncle forced it, like all this thing, like her moral compass, the only person that she was actually upset that died on this island is not in the flash visage of everyone that was in this TV show in the final shot. Her mum is not there. At first I saw it and I was like, no. In fact, that should be the show art for this episode. I was like, and then I was like, no. Double take. I'm going to go back, pause. She's not in the shot.
That's nuts. I wonder if she just wasn't available that day or was like, I'm just done with the show.
She 100% checked out. She got off that island as soon as her character died. She's like, I have no obligations. Can you? Well, we might need to pan back onto you as a dead body. Get a dummy. Literally, she's not in the shot.
But we've got the orphan. Then you don't need me.
Yeah, she's not in the shot. But Cronenberg's at the front, and Cronenberg's like, yeah, like that, as if he's happy.
Proud,
she's supposed to be seeing this, so she's made her granddad proud. A guy who was fucking horrible to her.
Well, but all right, so
I hate this ending. I hated this ending.
Yeah, it's terrible. But here are the interpretations of this ending. As if this is high-minded art. I don't want to pretend that for a second. One thing I love about this, though, is she's giving this whole monologue about, like, wouldn't it be terrible to raise a child that you resented for their very existence and so forth? It is just a Werner Herzog.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, just like, and again, the terrible void of existence is seen in the eyes of your own child.
Yeah. The cave, the hollow, the womb. Like, you're just like, what the fuck am I? Right, Herzog? You were supposed to be reading a kid's story.
The little and welcome. Could not.
Yeah. Hello. Allow me, Werner Herzog, to read to you this rendition of Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. The cave, the hollow, the death, the all-encompassing void. Your child. I will not have green eggs and ham.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Goldilocks was discovered and horribly mauled.
The end.
It is much like the Grizzly Man. You should never listen to this tape.
But I guess it's just...
So the moral of the story of all of this, if the point, if there is one, I think, is that Aaron Martin is sort of saying absolute power corrupts absolutely. Even a character like Liv is seduced by money.
Even like Liv, a character who we have now found out not directly murdered people in Iraq, can be corrupted by money when she didn't have it before. Right. So even even a murderer who, even a questionable character can become questionable at the end of a questionable series of questionable events. It's just so fucking stupid.
Yeah. And now she is doomed to live a life of wealth and emptiness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
now she's kind of literally how this, like, what should have happened if there was justice in this season. What should have happened is the boat should have arrived. She should have got on the boat. We should have seen her smiling as the boat pulled off and moved along. And then a buzzing. And she opens a drawer and it's Cronenberg, who congratulates her on winning the game and knew it would be Liv all along, whilst releasing her secrets to the press and dooming his family. Like, not one of them. Like, you would not leave your... See, this is the misconception in this show is to run a business, you need to be a dickhead. That is literally not how that works. You need to have business acumen, some degree of skill, or you're going to run it into the ground, right? So ultimately, the one that this whole competition is for nothing. Like, he's not bread and air apparent to the throne. Once it would make sense if we found out Spencer, I don't know, had been one of 7 children to a father who like forced them to death fight in Thunderdome. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Even as a setup, that's the thing that annoys me the most about it. Is even as a setup, we mentioned before, like on that kind of Agatha Christie trend, and the the retellings of that story, or even just in general the adaptations of that story, there's something intrinsic in the middle that has value that you don't need to have a skill out with being ruthless to acquire. The goal at the end of this is not just to inherit the money, it's to inherit the business, which Spencer built up through blood, sweat, and tears and wants to continue on to future, right? You give that to the person that's qualified. You don't give that to the person that survives a massacre. It's not very, like, it just kind of feels like, Aaron Martin has a rough interest and idea, like something on paper, like you mentioned, that, this absolute power corrupts that. And he's like, how do I fit this into a slasher confine? And then he looks, and there is hundreds of hours of cinema, which has done it really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And then he throws all that in the bin, and then he just takes his stab at it as if he is the first person to ever approach it from this point of view. And it's rubbish. Like I said, like, you get to Liv isn't, we said by the 3rd episode, she was not a likable character at all. And that would be the point at the end, is to find out how corrupted she's become as a character. But there was not one likable, non-corrupted character on this island at all. In fact, I wish Vincent had got the money now. Actually, like, genuinely, because we didn't get his backstory. So as far as I know, he was tortured for 20 years. Literally, like...
Yeah, and he kind of suggests when Dr. Death brings up the murder, when he's like, that was bullshit. I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, everyone else seems to own what they've done. So I honestly, it just... It's like, it's up there, actually. It is definitely 100% up there with the ending of season 2.
Yeah, in terms of just being a completely terrible ending.
Yeah, oh, she's still alive and she still sees her son?
Yeah.
All right, amazing. Well, that's great.
So, the way that I think this should have ended is if you
the boat should have sank.
No, like Liv should have... After discovering, Theo is just as shitty as everyone.
Yeah.
She should have done what they talked about earlier in the season, set fire to the manor.
Yes.
That the show ends with her getting on the boat and looking back as the whole of the island burns. She never got the inheritance. That like the Galloways and everything that they stood for is now just reduced to ash. And she makes a point of saying, like, I didn't want that money. I saw what that did to that family.
Yeah.
They were terrible. Like, that's at least getting us on her side to some degree.
Yeah. There's a change in the character that, like, that I think, had they not revealed that she was involved with something, with a cover-up somewhere in a contentious part of the world during a contentious fucking conflict,
right,
I might have been a little bit more on side with her. But the fact that, you know, like, let me show you, and then she strangles Theo to death, which I'm not against. Theo is easily one of the worst ones at the lot, because he hides behind that kind of friendly demeanor of trying to make it work for everyone, mostly because like, he knew that he'd done the worst thing. But the fact that she, well, let me show you, which to me indicates she's murdered people.
Yeah.
And not in a, well, the government trained me to be a killer, you know, not in a Rambo sort of way. You know what I mean? Like,
do we get the win this time?
Like, you know what I mean? And not in that way, in a way where, like, she clearly did something bad.
Yeah.
And like, it's
terrible. But more importantly, Duncan,
it's over.
That's it. That is 4 seasons of slasher that we have done.
A year and a half of our life.
Yeah.
We started this in January last year.
Yeah. So we are now done.
Yep.
And
who can say?
All right. All the people that somebody mentioned this on one of the Facebook posts of, like, the people who were like, no, this is the season that's good.
Yeah, Ramman posted this.
Right. Those were just trolls that were like,
I don't know. I looked at the ratings for this one. This one scored well. And then it makes, I think the thing is, I always come back to the same thoughts. Like, what is it I expect from the TV show that someone might not, you know, what am I not getting from the show that they are getting from it? And I thought, like, I at first I thought maybe it's just like mindless entertainment. But then there's 3 episodes of this show in the middle where nothing happened apart from a body reveal at the end. So I'm like, even if I was into it for the body count and the blood and all the rest, even if I was into it for that, this show didn't really... Yeah, some of the kills were kind of awesome, but you had to wade through like 40 minutes of really bad acting and really bad TV to get to a kill. And I just don't understand. I don't understand what itch that's scratching for people, that you can't, like, especially on a service like Shudder, when you're surrounded by horror movies that you can just switch on and watch.
The House by the Cemetery is right there. You could just watch that.
Yeah, you get like more than your fill there. I just don't understand not what purpose this serves. At this point, The thing is, it's a branded name. There will be like slasher, like they did at the end of the James Bond movies, like slasher will continue in Jack the Zipper, whatever we're calling it. He's a porn director, by the way.
I like the sound of that.
Not that we're going down that road here, ladies and gents. But like, what I mean? If it's a brand now, you don't have to do any. You don't have to do really much in the way of any marketing now for slasher. It's easy to churn up interest, and there is a baked fan base in there that will check it out. The fact it's an anthology format as well kind of aids it. But I just don't. I personally thought this one was the worst one, not by like a huge mile, but like I was thinking back over
these. Like let's do that. What are the of the 4 seasons? Where do they stack up for you? What's the best? What's the worst?
This is where you're gonna like call me fucking silly. 1 is the best, I think, right? And we're using these terms loosely, right? So 1 is the best. I would go 1, 1, 3, 2, 4. I've weirdly come up on 3.
3, 2, 4.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
see and there's a reason behind this. Season 2 is the season that like tried to hide a hidden imaginary boy for its entire season.
But I kind of adored that.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's not supposed to be funny, Bo.
In terms of just like personal enjoyment.
It had Glenn in it who raped people. It had an ending where the villain just escapes justice and is there to murder the only nice character in there, Dawn.
Yeah.
Like Dawn turns herself in, but she's going to get murdered by a serial killer at the end, where they have like some sort of fucking like Usual Suspects moment where she just walks off. And then I thought about like not only the male rape, but then Noah's rape turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I can't, man. Honest, I cannot. Like that when I was thinking back over it, 3 is full of horrible people, but 3 doesn't try and do anything except tell you that this building is full of horrible people. And I kind of admire its honesty there, but it tried to at least redeem some of those characters in one way, shape, or form by the end. Season 4 just makes every character reprehensible and doesn't try and redeem them. Season 2, like I say, is just full of questionable fucking content, and which makes season 1 by default the best, even though it is boring as fuck.
All right, I understand your argument there.
1, 3, 2, 4.
I'm gonna go. I still like season 2 more. Like I was entertained more by season 2. So I'm gonna go.
It's entertaining, but it's terrible.
It's terrible. They're all terrible though. So I'm gonna go 2, 1, 3, 4. And I think
okay.
And I only say like season 2 it's wrongheaded and it's offensive, and the whole secret boy thing is really stupid, but it was the first season where hero of the series, Paula Brancati, like really was front and center, and she was great. She was great in every season.
She's been the high water, and if anything coming out of this, she is the discovery of like an honest to goodness talented actress.
Yeah, and I think it was Jason Gray who pointed out like she's been getting some of that Lifetime movie money, which is great. Whatever she's got to do to get paid, like yes, she's a genuinely talented actor. Yeah. I'm glad that she has gotten at least some success out of this, and
I agree with you. If they're bringing her back in season 5, make her the killer.
Please let her go bananas.
Yeah.
Like and don't try to fuck around and hide it. Don't make it a mystery. Just have her be the killer.
Yeah, because she's a surprisingly versatile actress, and I want to see her go bad.
Yeah, I want to see her break bad. So Duncan.
Yes, Bo.
That is it for Slasher until season 5 appears sometime in 2023. We'll
late 2023 is what they're saying, which made me even happier. Yeah.
So are we doing a Duran Duran before? Are we doing the palate cleanser?
You know what? Let's do the palate cleanser.
Okay.
I think we've earned it, dude. We've earned it.
I'll tell you what. So the next episode that you'll get in 2 weeks will be us discussing Duran Duran's Notorious.
Notorious.
Released in November of 1986. An album that contains songs like Notorious and So Misled and Meet El Presidente.
Oh, hello.
Viva El Presidente!
Meet El Presidente is exactly what I say when I take my zip down.
Anytime I hear El Presidente, I think of that episode of The Young Ones where they discover oil in the basement. And Vivian just becomes a jackbooted thug of Mike.
Oh yeah.
And it carries that paddle around that he keeps smacking people with and yelling, Viva El Presidente! And Neil hits him in the head with the pickaxe. And when he stands up and he's got the axe going through his head, he goes,
"Yeah,
Neil, it's all right. This was unavoidable." A terrific episode. I think that's the one. Is Madness on that one doing House of Fun?
Yes.
Anyway,
must be
because they hold a fundraiser for the burgeoning revolution.
That's right. Yeah.
That. Anyway, what a terrific show.
So yeah, we'll be doing Duran Duran, and then after that, Bo.
Oh, Duncan, this is for all of my, I had the stupid idea to do Slasher. That was originally my fault. But this is Duncan's contribution to the next weeks of our lives.
Yeah, weeks and weeks. Yeah, we're going to be doing the entire Pink Panther run of movies, starting with the original Pink Panther from 1963, and working our way right through to those absolutely horrific Steve Martin ones. But at least we get to talk about Steve Martin. So yeah, we'll be doing the entire run of a surprisingly inconsistent movie series where the best of them are just the moments where you get to sit there and bask in the comedic genius that is Peter Sellers. And what I will say is an incredible performance by Herbert Lom, genre great mainstay Herbert Lom. I can't fucking wait. The thing that's kind of sweetened the pot in this one is that I grew up with these movies, so these are very well known to me. They were always on the telly in the UK when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I've seen these many times.
And I've seen the first one once.
Yeah. So you've never seen the bits where, because Clouseau, as played by Peter Sellers, is a bit character in the first Pink Panther movie.
Right. Which is the only one I've seen, yeah.
So you've never seen him take main stage from A Shot in the Dark onwards, which is when things become fucking amazing. I honestly can't wait. I'd like the one lines that we're going to be saying. The one thing I will say, and I'm going to put this out at the front, is that the majority of these movies are shot, well, the majority of the good ones were shot in the 60s and 70s. They have not aged particularly well when it comes to some of the questionable racism of the time in the UK as pertains to the conversation on people of an Oriental persuasion or from the East. So there will be the occasional line in there that is a bit cringy, and we'll probably want to talk about it in some way, shape, or form. But of the time, that's kind of how comedy was done. So kind of difficult to kind of parse out on that one. That being said, though, it honestly we're going to be having a fun time with this. But it's also a series that is at its best. Peter Sellers was at the front. This is like the Dracula thing all over again. Peter Sellers was at the front. Peter Sellers kind of didn't want to do them anymore. They recast that shit, did not work.
Yeah.
Brought him back. He died unexpectedly. So there is a movie that they made which was kind of cobbled together out of essentially like outtakes and like talking heads and all the rest. And then they did the Son of Clouseau. And then they went on and, like I say, rebooted it with Steve Martin. And there's 2 movies there of those. So we've got a fair few of them
here's,
to do.
Here's the list, and you tell me if we're doing all of these.
Right, go for it.
Okay, so there's obviously original Pink Panther.
Yep.
Shot in the Dark in 1964 is the next appearance of Clouseau.
Yep.
Inspector Clouseau, which is the one with Alan Arkin as Inspector Clouseau.
That's right. So he's the one that came in to do it after Sellers didn't want to do another one. And it failed, and it is not very good.
And then there's Return of the Pink Panther.
Yep.
Pink Panther Strikes Again.
Yep.
Revenge of the Pink Panther.
Revenge.
That is from 1978. And
yes,
it is the last performance of Peter Sellers.
Yeah, because the next one would be Trial of the Pink Panther.
That's right.
Which is the one that's used for all the footage of him kind of posthumously used.
And so then there's Curse of the Pink Panther.
Yes.
And then Son of the Pink Panther.
Yes.
And then the 2 reboots, Pink Panther and Pink Panther 2 from 2006 and 2009 with Steve Martin as Clouseau.
That's it. That's our list. So yeah, we've got a few to get through. Dude, on. I can't. I'm smiling because I'm thinking about some scenes now, and like you got to remember, this predates things like Police Squad, which use a lot of the jokes from the Pink Panther. So
we've got the next 22 weeks of Duncan and Bo Come Correct will be
end of the year.
Yeah, it'll put us right through to the holidays, and so it'll be. I don't know. We haven't come up with a clever name for this one yet.
We will. Yeah, I mean, naming stuff is what we do, Bo.
That's right. $1 million ideas left and right. Folks, thank you so much for joining us on the journey through this just really terrible slasher series. The
thing is, we said at the start, right at the very beginning, that it was a level of trash that we thought was just primed for ridicule, and never have truer words been spoken.
And we were right. And
100% right. From watching one episode of the first season, we fucking called it, Bo.
Well, but that's the thing, Duncan. Every season we called the killer way in advance. We called weird shit like The Orphan. And Dr. Death being every season it was like we were a minimum of 6 episodes ahead of where the show was. And so if anything, as we've said, it proves that we are at least as smart as Aaron Martin. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this extended journey through slasher. As we said, we've got a Duran Duran palette cleanser coming up, and then we will launch into Pink Panther stuff. If you have a show a show name idea, feel free.
That's up.
To hit us up on the social media. Speaking of where people can find you, Duncan, where can people find you, Duncan?
You can check me out on podcast Under the Stairs. Once again, just loads of things kind of happening just now. The next episode we'll be dropping, which will drop before this launches, is the aforementioned Baz v Leatherface, where myself and the Baz talk about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie unfavorably. And the horizon for that show as well, with the Bazzy stuff, we will be doing Men when it comes out in the UK. Very much looking forward to that. And we have other ideas. I think the next review we're doing with him might be The Sadness, which both of us haven't seen yet, and I think it might be worthwhile Baz checking it out and getting some of the Baz commentary on it. There's various other things. We're doing Gamera box set stuff with Derek over there. They have a whole other feed called the Teapots Collective, which has Chronicled next episode featuring Derek Bourgeois, who'll be joining me to do a lesser known Wordalac adaptation, which I'm very much looking forward to doing, because I watched that movie for the first time and it was surprisingly good. We will be doing Opera Omnia, which is returning with a slight change, and we're pivoting to doing Alex Garland's 3 movies as a shorter run, because I missed a month because my guest dropped out. Conflicts and scheduling. So we'll be doing that. Doing the Nasty is continuing the Lord's work, and also have, what's that, Chronicle, Doing the Nasty, Opera Omnia, and Where to Begin With is continuing its run through noir and film noir. The next movie I'll be covering on that is a little movie by this guy. You may have heard of him. It was his first movie. He didn't really go on and do much after his first movie, called Stanley Kubrick, and his movie, The Killers. So that is the next one there for that. We just covered Brick.
I was about to say the Brick episode was quite good. I really enjoyed that.
I love that movie. I have an unhealthy love for.
It's a great film.
And
that scene where
a lot of people never seen
it. Where they're talking in the kitchen and the mother brings in cookies.
It's brilliant.
It's just
one
of the best scenes ever.
I said, like, to me, there's a degree of genius there where a director can take the hierarchy of how noir books are written in terms of the different sects or different groups of people that are build up around corruption, and then take that as a template and just superimpose it over high school. To me, is like it's a level of genius that I think just works way beyond what you would expect. So yeah, it's a great movie, and I'm looking forward to hearing the reviews from the people that tend to send in reviews, because neither one of them have ever seen it before. So
all right.
Will be interesting to see how, because that director, Rian Johnson's, went on to huge things. Knives Out 2 coming on Netflix. And you cancelled your Netflix.
I'll pick it up for a month to get Knives Out 2. I can't believe that's not in the theaters. That's crazy.
It's nuts, yeah. But yeah, so what about yourself, Paul? What you got going on?
Not much, Duncan.
Apart from an episode of me and you talking about a giant whale.
Yeah, just recently on the Dark Parade. The Dark Parade is where you can find most of the work I do. And we're wrapping up now an entire month of aquatic horrors here in May.
Mm-hmm.
And Duncan and I did an episode on Moby Dick that was a tremendous amount of fun to talk about. And it was interesting to see people respond to that and say, like, oh yeah, this is totally a horror movie, or say, like, I've never seen this and you guys have convinced me to watch this movie. And
mission accomplished.
Yeah,
a kind of George W. Bush sort of way.
Let's not get into that sticky wicket. Boy, guy gave up the game recently.
It's my favorite clip. It's my favorite clip, because as soon as it comes out his mouth, you just know off air. Like before he went on stage, they were just saying, "Don't mention Iraq.
Yeah,
don't mention Iraq. Don't just don't mention Iraq." It's weird that we're asking you to talk about an illegal invasion and how bad it is. Just don't do just don't like that.
Please don't talk about the invasion of a sovereign nation, please. It's anyway. But yeah, so there's that. They're the main episodes of Dark Parade, and then as you kind of mentioned, there's the found footage stuff that usually there's a main episode that drops on Wednesday, and then there's a bonus episode that drops on Friday. Sometimes that is Found Footage Full, which is me talking about found footage movies. Sometimes that's What You Watching with Jamie and Bo, in which myself and Jamie Salmons just kind of bullshit about movies we've been watching recently. And as always, it's just an excuse to get Jamie to say crazy things, which is just to say to get Jamie to talk. And then there's The Heart of Horror, which is a monthly bonus episode that I do with Kate Pollock, which is just us telling really uncomfortable and overly personal stories about dating and love and sex and all of the things that go along with being a person that is involved with other people. And also a horror movie in the mix. We're doing Return of the Living Dead 3 this month.
Oh wow.
And that is an episode that is all about dating a person that you know is bad for you. And I have been warned. We have not recorded this episode yet. That's actually going to happen tomorrow. But I have been warned. If you listen to the episode where Kate told a story about Mentos.
Mm-hmm.
I have been told by Kate that this story she is about to drop tomorrow is more disturbing than the Mentos story.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very excited about that.
Don't operate any heavy machinery while listening.
That's right. So that's Dark Parade, and then the other thing that I do is with my old friend Chad. We do a show called Pick Six Movies, where every 2 weeks we do an episode based around a theme. We do 6 movies based around a central theme. This season is called Bombs Away, and we have been doing the big bombs of cinema history. We just recorded Geely, as a matter of fact.
The JLo thing.
Yeah, and that's a crazy movie. I had no idea what we were getting into with that one. But
was that a first watch for you?
Yeah, I had never seen it before. God. And it was just like, what is this movie about? Right? Like, oh, this is uncomfortable for every reason. Yes, talk about movies that haven't aged well. It's not that old, and it's shocking.
Well, like, she's only just bounced back.
Yeah,
in the last couple of years. That movie tanked her, like heavily tanked her career. So,
and Martin Brest, the director of that, has not made a movie since then, and that's the guy who did Sin of a Woman and Midnight Run, and I mean, just crazy good movies.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just after that movie was like, I'm done.
I'm done.
It's such a bizarre movie.
I haven't watched it yet. But what's his face? Comedian Mike Myers has just come back with that Netflix show, and some people were describing some of it online. I was like, this guy has not learned his lesson at all.
Yeah, I've heard Love Guru comparisons that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I do not want to do this, and I am not. So I refuse. That's why I now am announcing my cancellation of my Netflix number.
So yeah, I get it. I'm there with you. Anyway, I think that's it. And then the only thing left to do to wrap up this particular episode is to say to Duncan, say goodnight, Duncan.
Say to Duncan, good night, Duncan.
That doesn't make any sense.
It does if you're on this end.
Yeah, all right. Bye.
Bye.